Have you been worried that a lack of sleep may cause issues with the most precious organ you have? Have you heard that zero sleep can cause brain damage? Have you perhaps even experienced symptoms that has had you believe that this has already happened to you? If this sounds familiar, I'm so glad you're here. We're not only going to see what the answer to whether zero sleep can cause brain damage is no, we're going to back that up. We're going to see why it may look like it can cause brain damage. We're going to see how to meet the situation so you can find peaceful sleep and peace of mind. Welcome to this episode of Insomnia Insight. I'm Coach Daniel, your host on this journey where we explore so many pieces of misinformation out there that can cause so much struggle for us. And one of them is that little sleep, sleep deprivation, zero sleep can cause brain damage. Before we get into it though, I just want to say that we're this close to 20,000 subscribers, which is very exciting and something I'd never think would materialize when I started this channel. So super excited about that. And I'm going to record a little special 20K episode that we'll share here once we hit 20,000. But anyway, if you have been worried about your brain health, I'm really sorry, you've had to struggle with this, but I'm glad that you're here. We're going to look at in this class is we're going to look at the answer, and I'm going to back up my answer that I already shared in the intro, and then we're going to talk about why it can really look like we've had brain damage, and then what to do. And so the answer to whether zero sleep can cause brain damage is no. If somebody asked me, can zero sleep cause brain damage? I would be no. I would be like, no, zero sleep cannot damage your brain. However, that sounds just like an opinion, right? So if somebody then said, okay, Daniel, how do you back that up? Well, then I would first say, okay, yes, that sounded like an opinion. So a more true statement from me would be something like this. There is no evidence that zero sleep causes any brain damage. There's just no evidence supporting this claim. And if somebody said, oh, can you expand on this? Can you share why you say this? Then I would say the following. I picked up four things, like 4 points to back up the statement with. And number one, of course, at this stage of technological development and whatnot, is to go to ChatGPT or maybe another LLM or maybe another of these type of resources. But I went to ChatGPT and I asked, is there evidence? I said, is there proof or is there evidence that little sleep or what is that? And let me just tell you exactly what I wrote. I have it right here. My question was, is there any evidence proving that not sleeping causes brain damage? That's exactly what I wrote. And then ChatGPT said, well, ChatGPT gave me kind of a longer answer, but the first sentence was, no, there's no strong direct evidence in humans that typical sleep loss causes permanent brain damage. Now, this statement doesn't sound super strong from ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is kind of like, it errs on the side of caution, right? But it still said no. Like the answer here is no. And so it says there's no strong. Okay, strong is kind of subjective. What is strong anyway? But direct, when it said direct here, if you look at the complete answer from ChatGPT, what it means is that there's no direct evidence, as in there's no evidence in humans. It says, however, in some models of mice or rodents or things of that nature, there's evidence that suggests that sleep deprivation may cause brain damage in them, right? But again, these are small mice models, right? So again, there's no evidence that in humans, or personally, I'm not sure this is true for the mice either. These are like old small experiments. But anyway, there's no evidence that little sleep in humans causes any brain damage. So we have it from ChatGPT, and I think that is really, really strongly supporting my statement here that there is no evidence that their sleep causes brain damage. I didn't add in humans, but of course, that's the only thing we are really interested in, right? Is ourselves. So the first one was ChatGPT. ChatGPT backs up this statement. And then I also wanted to mention Randy Gardner, who is the quote unquote world champion of not sleeping. Back in the day, we still had competitions in not sleeping, where people would see how long they could go, stay awake, and the person who stayed awake the longest would win. And the competition that Randy Gardner was in is the most well-known one. It was observed by a well-known sleep physician, William Dement, and supposedly Randy went 11 days without sleeping. Now, it wasn't like he was hooked up to an EEG for 11 days. So I'm not sure this is true at all. I believe he must have had many instances of microsleep, that added up to a certain amount, But anyways, he went 11 days mostly without sleeping, and he was totally fine. Like he said that after 11 days he felt really sleepy. Then he slept for something like 12, 14 hours. And after that, he just resumed his normal sleep schedule. And during this competition, by the way, he was playing chess quite well, and he was performing quite well, right? So hearing this has been like reassuring for a lot of people. So this, of course, is not like long term, but it shows that it's kind of like anecdotal evidence that zero sleep does not cause brain damage. Let's put it that way. And then we have, okay, this is a little bit more wishy-washy, but I still wanted to put it out there. And to me, this is like the common sense answer, right? That we have evolved over millions of years. And some are saying like, humans have only been around for like a couple 100,000. Yeah. But before that, we were maybe apes, or before that we were something else, right? So we were part of evolution that has taken the course of like, millions and millions of years. And only like the fittest have survived this long process. So even if we may not think of ourselves that way, we are like we're a very scrappy bunch, right? We have evolved over millions of years to survive. And if little sleep could cause like damage to our most valuable organ, our brain, it just doesn't make sense. If there ever was any like mutation where little sleep would cause brain damage like that, that lineage would not have survived, right? So we are evolved for survival. So it does not make any sense to me that little sleep would cause any brain damage. And like maybe even less so in the context of insomnia, where little sleep comes from us thinking we're threatened. So little sleep here is a part of our safety response, right? So imagine if that safety response was activated for what it's designed for, right? Some threat out there in nature, or like some warring tribe is, coming to get us something, and our threat system is activated, and we sleep a little because we're supposed to be active and alert. It doesn't make any sense that the very system, like our defense system, our protective system, activation of that causes damage to us. It just does not make any sense. So to me, this kind of common sense perspective also backs up the statement that it doesn't make any sense that zero sleep causes brain damage. Is what I'm trying to say. And then also, when this question is asked, like, can zero sleep cause brain damage? There may be a built-in assumption there that it is possible to have zero sleep for an extended period of time, and it is not. Sleep is self-regulating. The longer we go without sleep, the more like sleep drive is built up in our bodies, and the more likely that we're just going to fall asleep, right, unintentionally. And Martin Reed, our good friend Martin Reed, insomnia coach Martin Reed, he uses this example of holding our breath. He says that we can hold our breath for quite a long time, but we can never hold our breath to a point where it would be dangerous. And as opposed to little sleep, like there is clearly evidence that lack of air is harmful to us humans, but we can still not like harm ourselves by holding our breath. And I think bringing that to sleep, we can see that we can go for much longer than we typically go without sleeping. Let's say, we typically go like, what should we say, 18 hours, 17, 18 hours without sleep, and then we sleep, right? We can extend that like Randy Gardner did. Like we can extend from 18 hours, to many, 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 many more hours, but not indefinitely. Eventually, we're going to sleep. Eventually, if we try to hold our breath, we have a rescue breath, right? Eventually, we're going to sleep. So it's not possible to have zero sleep for an extended period of time. Now, having the experience the perception that we've had zero sleep for weeks, months, even longer, well, that's not that uncommon. And that really ties into this activation of our like threat system. When we're threatened, we're hyper alert. We often don't even realize that we're asleep. Well, the brain paints this picture of us being like awake all the time. So we can have the perception of zero sleep, but it's not really that way. Okay, so far I've shared why I am, why I can make the statement that there's no evidence that zero sleep or sleep deprivation or short sleep causes any brain damage. But then we might ask ourselves, like, what does it look like that? Because certainly it can seem that our brain has already been damaged or is in the process of being damaged. And why is this? Why is this? Well, in our world, and when I say our world, I mean the world of the inner struggle, of insomnia, of anxiety, zero sleep really does not come from, playing video games because we enjoy it. It's not voluntary sleep deprivation. It is rather from thinking that not sleeping is a threat. It's thinking that we're threatened, and the activation of this defense mechanism, you can call it the sympathetic nervous system or the fight or flight system, whatever you want, like this threatened state puts us in a hypervigilant mode, and that keeps us awake. So zero sleep comes from thinking of not sleeping, in particular when it comes to insomnia, as a threat. Now, thinking we are threatened makes us really laser focused on survival, laser focused on problems, laser focused on the threat and on surviving. And therefore, we only focus on sleep. Creating new memories and the recall of memories is not prioritized. And this is why so often when we're in the struggle, we forget things. We don't remember things and we can't recall things, right? And then it may look like our memory is shot. It's like, oh my gosh, my memory is shot. This has caused brain damage. No, it's not brain damage. It's just that the brain is not prioritizing memories at this point. It's just prioritizing survival. Similarly, we can have this experience of like, oh no, I can't remember what's this called. I don't remember the name of this. Same thing when we're in this certain state. Our brain is so focused on survival that recall of names of familiar objects is not prioritized. And this explains why we can think our brain is damaged when it's not. It's just a priority thing. And there's so many more experiences we can have in the threatened state. I wrote on some of them here. We can have, for example, blurry vision. It's very common when we're stressed and anxious. We can have jerks and jolts and shaking, body shaking. We can have troubles with balance. We can have tinnitus. We can have this out of body experience where we have derealization. We don't know who we are, where we are, what we are, what's going on, right? We can have zero sleep. We can have nausea, tingling, burn sensations. This is just a few of many, many symptoms that actually come from the threatened state, but that we can think mean that our brain has been damaged. So again, the threatened state can make it look like our brain has been damaged, when in reality, it hasn't. All this is just a normal survival response. So if all this sounds familiar to you, and you're now at a point where you're like, okay, I get it. So zero sleep cannot damage my brain. I understand why I may have thought so, because of the symptoms that come from actually the threatened state. So what I do? The answer here is, to me, first of all, give yourself a big, warm hug, because you've been really, really frazzled. You've had a traumatic experience. And when I say traumatic, I mean like you've had an experience where you thought really your life was in danger, and that's very unpleasant, and it's really scary. So give yourself a big hug. This is just a confusion. We all have these confusions, and we can, need a lot of support when we've been through something like that. So give yourself a really big hug, be extra kind and gentle with yourself. That really, really helps. And other than that, you've already done everything. You're seeing now there is no threat. There was no threat. And when this happens, like that threatened state fades away, survival mode fades away, and you find what you were looking for this whole time, which is relief, peace of mind, and peaceful sleep. These all will just passively, automatically come to you. I hope this brought a lot of value. I hope this was clarifying, and that you learned something valuable. And with that said, I will conclude here, and I look forward to seeing you really soon again. Bye for now. Hi, I'm Daniel, and I hope you found a ton of value in the video that you just watched. But if you've been tuning in for a while and things are still not clicking for you, then there's something very specific that I think can help you. And by not clicking, I mean, for example, if you're understanding things intellectually, but they haven't sunk in on a deeper emotional level, or you're not anxious at night, you're not worried, but sleep just isn't arriving, or you're following our way to a T, but you're still not finding any relief. These are examples of when things are just not clicking. And when this is the case, what really helps is discourse, discussion, having a back and forth with somebody who understands you. Asking a question, getting a reply that makes sense, asking a follow-up question, getting a reply that makes sense, asking a follow-up question to that, etc. This really leads to a place where things gel, things sink in, things click for you. And that leads to where you want to be, a place of peace of mind and peaceful sleep for the rest of your life. And who better have discourse with than somebody who not only understands our framework, but who has left the struggle themselves, who has found things click for themselves, like our coaches. And you can have this discourse within our Insomnia Immunity program, or within BedTyme, or in a one-on-one call. If you want to explore any of these options, check out either of them on thesleepcoachschool.com. And if you decide to join, we look forward to seeing you on the other side.